Hey guys, welcome to my brother's Ballot. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Subscribing really helps the channel grow. So let's get into it. So, of course, living in America, it's not shocking that you wake up to hearing someone went into a school and decided to unalive children because we live in a country where guns are more important than people. Let the GOP tell it. And so that was one of the topics that was on Abby Phillips last night. Let's get into this clip and into my reaction.
3 adults and 14 other children were injured by gunfire. The children all were between the ages of 6 and 15, and 6 are believed to still be in critical condition. And like the other school shootings, too many that this country has become very familiar with, it was followed by a chorus of thoughts and prayers. But Minneapolis's mayor is fed up with that.
Don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying. It was the first week of school. They were in a church. These are kids that should be learning with their friends. They should be playing on the playground. They should be able to go to school or church in peace without the fear or risk of violence, and their parents should have the same kind of assurance.
I could not agree with him anymore. One of the things, I'm not the most religious person. I'll be the first to tell you that. But one of the things that I do know, I think it's I'm not even sure if it's in the Bible or it's just like a black saying, a black Christian saying, where it's a prayer without work is dead. Essentially all these thoughts and prayers, and then we do nothing. We enact no gun laws. We enact no safety provisions for these children in school. We just say thoughts and prayers. We pray and just pray and pray and pray and then blame it on mental illness. And then when it comes to the Republicans being in office, they will then defund any mental wellness programs that would actually help the thing that they always love to call out, but never do anything when it comes to the guns. So it just feels extremely cyclical. I can't wait to see what Scott says.
Bakari Sellers and Scott Jennings are here with us now. Bakari, earlier in the show, we played the soundbite from the principal who said, this African proverb, when you pray, move your feet. Yeah. There are many people who want feet to move in the direction of actually addressing what's going on here, rather than just saying it's just something that happens here.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we're kind of past that. I mean, most people realize that when you were able to kill 20 some odd young white children in Sandy Hook and nothing changed, that nothing was really going to fundamentally change in this country. This is another sad tragedy. But the problem is that there's an outrage from the right about Jacob Frey. And I'm not a huge Jacob Frey, mayor of Minneapolis. I'm not a huge fan, but he was right. I mean, the book of James teaches us that faith without works is dead. And so whether or not he was echoing that sentiment or echoing that scripture, I think that there are a lot of people who were tired of thoughts and prayers, because at the end of the day, thoughts and prayers ring hollow. At the end of the day, thoughts and prayers have led us to having more of these deaths, more of these shootings, more of these individuals who were killed inside of churches, inside of schools, in pews.
And people who are
I must say, I agree. I have not been the biggest fan of Bakari, especially like when it comes to his views on Israel. But he's 1000% correct. At the end of the day, and this is, I think it was extremely poignant for him to bring up Sandy Hook. 20 white children were unalived, and the country, the GOP, did nothing. Laken Riley, one woman was unalived by an undocumented person, and she has a law that has been enacted in Georgia, and it's a federal law if I'm not mistaken. Just one, and they were that actionable. How many mass shootings have we had? And I want to be very clear. I hate that happened to her. It should not have happened to her. But do you see the action that the GOP can take when they're passionate about something, when they want to stand up for the people? But when it comes to kids, their own kids, white children, the cream of the crop of America's children, they did nothing for. If they do nothing for them, what does it mean for the rest of us? Guns are more important to them than children, essentially. That's what it comes off as.
Yeah, I actually had a negative reaction to the mayor's statements today. I think it's wrong, frankly, to vilify or attack people of faith. You said thoughts and prayers ring hollow. I think thoughts and prayers are the most solid on days of tragedy for people who live their faith every day. And I think on a day like today, particularly in a church community, there are probably people praying harder for comfort today than they have ever prayed in their life. And so I think, and I've heard others on the left today go down this line of attack against people of faith, sort of denigrating the idea that they might want to pray today.
No one is denigrating people that want to pray. The problem is when that is where it stops. What happens after praying? What do we do after praying? I could not imagine having a child. Like, I hate to say this. It happened with Nancy Reagan. She was against stem cell research, but then when her husband got sick, all of a sudden she's for it. Maybe, and this, I am not saying that I want this to happen before anyone says this, but I think, like, I don't think empathy is a thing that is running rampant throughout the GOP. Sometimes I feel like they have to experience it to actually say, oh, no, we can't have this. And unfortunately, no matter whose children it is, we just allow this to keep happening. We keep saying T's and P's, thoughts and prayers. That's it. That's all we do. We do nothing else to save our children.
And so I think his statements were misguided. The thing that struck me today, Abby, truthfully, when I was watching this unfold, was that the two little ones that died were 8 and 10. I have 7 and 9. Those are my two youngest. They turn 8 and 10 in a few.
And there we are. That's why his voice is cracking. Because those kids look like his kids and are close to his children's age. But guess what? All he's going to give is T's and P's. He's not going to call Daddy Trump and say, hey, bro, we need to fix this. We got to fix these gun laws. They're killing children in Minnesota. Like, no, because guns are more important than our children.
Days. And we could probably sit here and argue out all the issues of faith and transgenderism and all the other things that have been raised today. But it strikes me that none of us ever want to know the terror and the absolute empty hole that will never be filled that those parents of the 8 and 10-year-old are going to feel. And I just thought maybe tonight the most useful thing any of us could do would take 10 seconds and just sit quietly and be still and be quiet and think about
this bullshit. This man said the most useful thing, as he is on a CNN panel that is watched by millions of people, the most useful thing that they could do is give a 10 seconds of silence. When he has worked under Bush, where he has so many connections to people in actual power to do something, and he says all we need to do is a 10 seconds of silence. What a joke.
about those families, because they are never going to be the same, no matter what we say.
The rate of mass shootings and school shootings in this country is coming down, not going up. And it started coming down in 2022 when we passed the first significant anti-gun violence bill in 30 years. We now have proof of concept in this country that if you are more careful about putting guns in the hands of dangerous people, you can save thousands of lives. The mythology that the gun lobby has disseminated across this country for decades, that more guns makes us more safe, that's just empirically false.
What do you think about that, Philippe?
At the end of the day, you know, possessing a firearm is a big responsibility. And at the day now that we have mental health issues constantly being at the center of all these shootings, we have to do.
Every time that there is a mass shooting, there's always mental health being brought up. We lead in mass shootings and gun deaths. This country does, compared to any other nation. Every other nation has mental illness, but somehow they don't have as many mass shootings as we do. So I wonder what could be the cause. So how is it that all these other countries have mental illness? Probably the same amount as mental illness as we do, but a lot of them also have universal health care, so that probably helps them as well. But somehow they just don't shoot each other as much as we do. I wonder what that cause could be. I wonder why that is.
Do something to address that. Like I said before, in law enforcement, we would actually coach people to, turn yourself in, basically go in as a self-admitted person. This way you won't be detained in the mental health facility for a great amount of time. And at the end of the day, it comes to bite us back because the person's not really getting the help that they should. And we do have a mental health crisis.
Yeah.
Well, we do have a mental health crisis, but I do want to say, first of all, as a psychologist, I think it's important that we don't stigmatize people who do have mental health challenges, mental health problems. They're the ones who are victimized more often. That being said, going back to this,
I'm glad he said that. If you are someone that has a mental illness, you are more likely to be attacked and victimized than be a victimizer.
Situation of prayers. I think prayers are important, Scott, but I think people want more than prayers at this point. They're really angry. What are we doing in government? What are we doing in federal government that seems to be pulling back from gun violence prevention, from community safety, and so on? So yes, prayer is important. I pray all the time. I'm praying for those families. But what are we going to do after the prayers? How are we going to come together as a society, as politicians, bipartisan action to be able to protect children? How long will we allow them to be collateral damage due to our ideological difference?
Yeah, that's a good question, Scott. What happens after? I mean, what should happen now to stop this from your perspective as a Republican?
Sure. Well, I think the first question you have to ask is, why did it happen? I don't think it happened because of guns. I think it happened because somebody who was clearly suffering from severe mental illness
Had access to weapons that would allow them to carry out a terrible shooting.
And the mental illness was encouraged.
Do you see how, y'all, we're done. We're cooked. We are cooked. Cooked. Done.
But Scott, what about people who don't have mental illness?
I don't think we can tiptoe around this issue. And when you look at the messages that were written in some of the materials and on the weapons that we've seen, I mean, this person obviously was in a dark place.
Obviously.
And I want to know,
obviously.
I'm not sure the government is in that person's life enough to know, but his parents are.
But what
his
about,
family is.
Scott, what about people who don't have mental illness? We have a huge gun violence issue here in the United States. We lead in gun violence.
But the issue today is quite obviously mental illness. And
if you take away the
not in a vacuum. If you take away the mental illness, you still have the guns. Do you know the number one driving cause of children's deaths are guns? It beats car accidents. It beats pools. It's guns. That's what's killing our children. Not every single person that pulls a trigger has a mental illness. Let's not scapegoat this whole gun epidemic issue that we have.
Mental illness,
respectfully,
it still
I
leads to
think
guns.
the problem is that this issue can't be isolated in the vacuum of today. And I think, to your point,
I agree.
Mental illness is a cop-out for today, which is also why I believe that, I love how the GOP believes that that's God's only party, right? But you have people of faith on both sides.
I don't believe that. We're all God's children, McCarty.
There are people of faith on both sides who are giving their prayers, but who also...
Again, not a religious person, but if that is what religion is, if Scott Jennings is what the image of God is, God's teachings, God's beliefs, not a party I want to be a part of.
Believe that action is required, because you asked the question, what happens after the prayers? Well, in this country, what happens after the prayers is that there's another shooting.
Boom.
The problem is, it's the damn guns. Like there is a mental health problem in this country. I have a CWP. In fact, I took my CWP class with Governor Nikki Haley. We sat beside each other. We went shooting together. That is not foreign in South Carolina. I believe in that amendment and that right. However, the accessibility of weapons is something we have to deal with. Mental health resources is something we have to deal with. And the fact that people get killed in churches, whether or not it's June 2015 in Charleston, South Carolina, or whether or not it's kids in Minnesota who get killed, as a person of faith, it should shake your faith to the core that people are getting gunned down in churches.
Everyone,
And other
thank you very
houses of
much.
worship.
We have to leave the
And
conversation
other houses of
there.
worship.
Thank you for joining us. We'll be right back.
1,000%. Again, I've said it before. We get an immigrant, we get an undocumented person that unalives one person, and the GOP will create and build a whole movement around her. But when it comes to our children, our most vulnerable, they have nothing to say. All they want to do is say thoughts and prayers. And they are 100% correct to say mental illness is the scapegoat right now. That's what they want to continue to focus on, because guess what? Guess what? They keep saying mental illness is the issue, but if you look at the big, beautiful bill where the Republicans always defund, it's always healthcare, it's always mental health. It's always mental health charities. So if you are defunding that, if you want to continue to highlight that it is mental illness, but then yet you defund all of those programs that could help people with mental illness, and you don't want to take away the guns, or at least limit guns, or at least have more restrictions, what do we need to do? All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. I was a little hyped. It just, stuff like this really bothers me because I feel like it's so easily able to be fixed. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Peace.